Welcome to the Flightcast, a place where opinions aren't right or wrong, and where we can agree or disagree about movies, TV, and other assorted media because it's all subjective. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope everybody's been having a decent start to the week. If you will, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to talk about this particular episode because, quite honestly, I've been talking a shitload about box office for like the last 3 or 4 days. I posted a bunch of stuff today with respect to box office. Superman really, it got hot and heavy into that as well, but some Fantastic Four stuff as well, to be honest with you. And that is a thing that I'm going to talk about later with respect to the fan bases, but really, what it really boils down to is it comes down to a revelation that I had recently, that I thought about, that I actually have to, I owe this revelation partly to my uncle, because I talked with him about a week or so ago. It was a family function. It was my cousin's birthday. And just, there was a thing that he said to me that opened my eyes and gave me a realization with respect to what I'm even doing with this show and what I'm even doing with my site. And I want to talk about that for a bit. This is kind of a come to Zod episode, to be honest with you. But I just had a realization of exactly what all this is about. Truthfully, it's kind of an existential fan thing, if you will. Before diving into all of that, which is, it's not going to be that long. Famous last words, because of course I talk a great deal. I just did a 5+ hour long feedback episode of Flight Chat the other day, which I don't know if we can keep doing that. That's really long. We may have to figure something out about that. But before getting into what I want to talk about in tonight's episode of the main show here, the Flightcast, I want to remind everybody that you can find this show and my other shows at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's the Flightcast YouTube page, youtube.com/theflightcast is where you can find all the episodes of this show. You can also find them on Spotify and Pandora or wherever you get your podcast, whatever podcatcher you use. This show, the main show, is on Tuesdays, and then we've got Flightbox, the TV review show, on Thursdays, and then the weekends are reserved for either Flight Review, if there is a movie review, or Flight Chat, our feedback show. And I was looking at the schedule, and I completely forgot that Nobody 2 is out next week, right? I didn't see Naked Gun last week, and I'm curious about Weapons, but I'm going to have a busy weekend coming up. I'm not going to be able to see Weapons quite just yet. But I am curious about it because, after realizing that I actually do enjoy certain horror movies, and there's some episodes of Flight Review that dig deeper into that on Patreon if you so choose. But at some point I do want to see Weapons, but not immediately. But next week, Nobody 2 comes out, the sequel to Nobody, which is, that's old man John Wick, right? Starring Bob Odenkirk, with all the 8711 action guys and another stuntman, directed action flick, that type of genre. I love it. I love what John Wick has done rather, with respect to creating and overhauling the action movie genre. That's next week. I might review that. I might see that and do a review of that particular movie for sure next week. So stay tuned for that. As far as Flightbox is concerned, Peacemaker Season 2 is a few weeks away, which means I've got to get caught up on Creature Commandos. And I don't know if it's going to be this week or next week, but I will be talking about Creature Commandos. And then, of course, I'll have continued discussion about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. I just reviewed the first 4 episodes, of that show on the last episode of Flightbox last week. And at the very least, I may talk about Episode 5 this upcoming Thursday if nothing else comes up with respect to the schedule and whatnot. But either way, that'll be on Thursdays, and then the feedback show and the review shows will be on the weekends. And of course, this show is on Tuesdays. That is so far the schedule going forward. If there are any changes, I should let everybody know. Trying to podcast consistently here. And with that, also want to consistently thank all of the very loyal supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. Thank you so much for your support. I posted another Flight Speed episode yesterday, again, talking about box office and talking about some stuff that I'm going to be dealing with here in this particular episode of this main show. But I also had a theory with respect to why I think certain Marvel individuals. No, Siri, I didn't call you. Well, my phone is freaking out because it thinks I said Siri. No, I did not. But either way, I had a theory with respect to why certain Marvel fans are freaking out over the Fantastic Four box office. It's a rivalry-based theory, if you will. But either way, that's available at patreon.com/theflightcast, along with other episodes of Flight Speed, Friday Flight as well, and I've got reviews in the hopper that I really want to, the stuff that I really need to watch and really need to read, that I really need to review, including some stuff, some animated, an animated franchise that I've been teasing for like the last month and a half that I really want to dig into. I have like almost all of it. I mean, they keep releasing new things. I have almost all of it. And when I dig into it, some of you are going to be like, oh, wow, really? Ray's going to watch that? Yeah, I am curious about these particular things because it is a genre of animation that I've been curious about for years, and I've dipped my toe into it every once in a while, but I want to dive headfirst into the pool. And it's an Olympic sized pool, mind you, especially this particular collection that I intend to dive into. Some of you, if you're curious about it, you may have already figured out what it is. If you've been watching any of my TikTok videos, you may have already seen what it is. I'll just leave it at that. But stay tuned for some flight review episodes on Patreon for that in the not too distant future when I finally get off my ass and start watching them. But either way, thank you so much for supporting patreon.com/theflightcast, and hope that all of you are enjoying the bonus content. If you are so interested, you can go to that website, patreon.com/theflightcast, and sign up to be a flight officer. That will get you access to all of the bonus content. If you join up to be a flight crew member, you will have access to Flight Speed and Friday Flight episodes, which come out on Mondays and Fridays. And then there's a free account. I'm not really certain what the free account does. A few of you are members of the free account. Could you tell me what it does? Truthfully, because I'm still navigating, even though I've had a Patreon for the last couple of years, they've changed a bunch of features. I really don't know entirely everything that it does. So if you're a member, like Amr and a couple of others, I know you're members of the free site, tell me what the hell it does. Like, is there something on there? Like, I don't know. I'm just curious as to what the features are with respect to it. But either way, thank you for supporting patreon.com/theflightcast. Hope that those of you subscribed are enjoying the bonus content. So real quick about the revelation that I had with respect to Flightcast and everything that I do. You've probably heard me say, like, especially when we talk about other, like, content creators and other accounts out there that have, like, thousands of followers. And even a number of you listen to the show, like, you have, like, way more followers than I do on, like, Threads and, like, BLUESKY and other places, right? And I've talked about how, like, not necessarily in relation to any of you guys, but just in general with, like, the bigger content creators, like the ones that have like major massive followings and like, it's their full-time profession and all that. I've said many times that I've resigned myself to the idea that I just am never going to get that big. And the reason I'm never going to get that big is because I'm not negative enough. I don't attract, I don't say the hot button things, right? I'm an honest person. I'm a genuine person, and I genuinely don't want to be a dick. I genuinely don't want to be just this person that causes shitstorms for nothing, because I don't like shitstorms. They're awful, and I don't like rage bots and trolling. Like, it's not something that I'm into at all. I think it is, it's the bane of our existence as far as nerds with respect to social media discourse, right? And so I'm like, if I'm not going to be the hot button person like that, if I'm not going to do what all the other big, huge content creators do, well, then I'm just never going to get that audience, because generally speaking, that's how you get that audience. Is you're just, a complete negative ass, or a misanthrope. You always hate things. You've always got something to stir the pot, and people like love that for whatever reason on social media. It's disheartening when you think about, like, the future of humanity with respect to what it is that attracts the most attention. Negativity and being a jerk, apparently, is what gets you the biggest audience. At least that's what it looks like whenever we look at YouTube, or whenever we look at, all the shitstorms on social media and whatnot. But I realize I shouldn't be saying that anymore, and here's why. Because when I was talking to my uncle, again, this was at my cousin's birthday gathering. My sister was in town. My baby sister was in town with her fiance, and I saw my uncle Dave, and he was telling me about how he listens to the show, right? And I was like, well, all right, cool. And I don't, when the family asks about my show, I do talk about it, but like not a whole lot of them are nerds. So a lot of times when I do talk to them about the show, it's literally me explaining to them what I do, right? And what I talk about, which I'm happy to do. Like, I don't have any issues explaining, yeah, well, we're talking about this movie, I'm talking about that show, that type of thing, right? Whatnot. But like movies, Dave and my dad are like the two biggest influences like on my life, like early on, as far as movies that I watched. Dad, I got all of the, like the Arnold, Bruce Willis, Sly Stallone movies from that. That's his fault, because he's got all those movies and he watched them and I watched them. And yeah, like all the action with Passenger 57 too, like all the Wesley Snipes stuff, it's his fault. It's complete. I watched Demolition Man with him when that first came out on like Showtime, like on cable, like in the basement in our old house in Detroit. And he took me to see Die Hard with a Vengeance when I was like 11 or 12 because he really wanted to see the movie. And he knew that I liked the Die Hard movies because I watched the first two like religiously in our house, like all the time. And yeah, so that's his fault as far as those action movies. And then Dave also showed me like all of his R-rated movies. And his movies, like there were some action movies, but there was also some other like crazier stuff like Angel Heart. Google that movie. Google the movie Angel Heart with Mickey Rourke and Lisa Bonet and Robert De Niro. Google that movie, see how crazy that movie is. Yeah, my uncle showed me that movie. He also showed me like other stuff like White Sands, and he was the first one that showed me Reservoir Dogs. He showed me a Quentin Tarantino, that first Quentin Tarantino movie, Reservoir Dogs, because I still feel like I'm one of the few people out there that is a Tarantino fan that has seen all of his movies in release order, because most people I know saw Pulp Fiction first and then went back and saw Reservoir Dogs. I didn't. I saw Reservoir Dogs first, thanks to my uncle. And I've seen all of Tarantino's movies in order, all 9 of his movies, which, do I have all of them? I do. I own all of them. I have all of Quentin Tarantino's movies in physical media form, including Death Proof, and I've seen them all in release order, thanks in no small part to my uncle. Anyway, so he knows about, like, all my movies, you know, and TV stuff that I talk about. And he made a comment about my show. He said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what he said, but he basically indicated that my show is not for novices. My show is not necessarily for the uninitiated, right? Like, people who listen to my show are people who follow stuff, right? People who are in the know. Like all of you guys, most of you that listen to this show, you have some passion in movies, television, other sort of media, comics, whatever it is, right? And I don't need to explain things to you because you already know what I'm talking about. And even if I do explain something to you, it's because I'm informing you of a thing that has happened, a thing that's going on in the fandom, and either you already know and you share your reactions to it, or you didn't know and now you're reacting to what I'm saying. Point is it's not a beginner show, if you will, right? Like, everyone is welcome. I don't feel like I talk down to anybody. I try not to. I really try not to be an asshole and talk down to people. I'm sure there are people out there that just think I'm like Fraser Crane when I talk about nerd shit. I guarantee there's some people and some RageBot accounts on Threads right now that think I'm that type of pretentious prick in that regard. But I really try not to be. And obviously, anybody can listen to the show and anybody can send in feedback, and I can definitely talk to anybody about any of this stuff, answer questions and whatnot, right? But just when he was saying that, I came to this realization. It's like, yeah, you know, I don't dumb anything down, right? I don't like necessarily like, you know, I don't talk slow or talk down to any of you guys in that regard because I know that my audience, I know that all of you get what I'm talking about. We're all on the same page, right? And that's when it hit me. It's like, okay, listen, I may not attract the audiences that are like, you know, all about rage and all about hate marketing and whatnot. But I do believe in building a better fan community. I do believe in building more rounded, more like subjective fans. Fans that understand what it's all subjective actually means. Fans that aren't just willing to just, you know, pick a battle line and just, all right, gloves, keep it clean. You know, keep the gloves up and that. It's not everything is a damn boxing match. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit with respect to the Marvel and DC fandoms. But that's what I'm doing, right? Like, I'm not, you know, Cinema Sins. And I'm also not Cinema Wins necessarily, right? I've talked about the disparity between those two sites because that kind of, like, encapsulates what it is that I do. Cinema Sins, of course, we all know, and most of us know what that site is. For anybody that does not know, Cinema Sins is a YouTube video site that literally they nitpick, and I mean like nitpick apart, like movies and, you know, find all the sins, count the sin counter, right? They go through a movie and they pick everything that they find wrong with it. Everything wrong with The Dark Knight. Everything wrong with Avengers Endgame, right? And a lot of it is just stuff that, okay, the only reason you're picking on this stuff, Cinema Sins, is because you're freeze framing and you're paying attention to shit that most of us don't even care about. with respect to, oh, this continuity error, that camera's in the wrong place, or you can see the grip and his wristwatch in a period piece back in the 30s, like back at like that type of stuff, right? And it's like, that's watching a movie. That's really what we want to do. But CinemaSins has like over 8 million subscribers. Like it's got a big subscriber count in that regard. Not as big as some of the more massive ones, but like that's a successful YouTube account, right? And then the companion one, Cinema Wins, which focuses on everything good in movies, has like a little over 1 million subscribers, right? I mean, like 1 to 2 million, something like that. Like significantly less than CinemaSins. And that just shows you the disparity between who loves hate marketing and all the anger shit and who loves the actual positive stuff. And of course, I like to talk about positive stuff, but I'm not going to lie. I complain a lot about the fandom. I do. Absolutely, I complain about the fandom. The fandom itself and fandoms in general is where a lot of my passion lies, because somebody says something stupid, somebody says something ridiculous, somebody's being a jerk, somebody's being closed-minded, somebody thinks they're being objective and doesn't realize that they're not objective, because objectivity means removing emotion, and your emotions are completely driving your entire point. You just don't want to admit it because you think that somehow that invalidates your point when it really doesn't. People that don't understand that it's all subjective literally means agree to disagree, and that I have no problem with agreeing to disagree. My only issue is when you're being a dick about it, when you're being a complete asshole about it, right? That's my only issue with respect to that. And so I came to the realization that what I'm doing, like as far as my aim, like I'm not looking for the audience that loves everything, or the audience, and I'm certainly not looking for the audience that hates everything. I'm looking for the audience that's in the middle. I'm looking for the audience that's in the gray area. Anyone listening to this show, I guarantee you, whether it's Anthony, whether it's Wally, whether it's Phil Barker, I guarantee you we haven't agreed on everything. I know we haven't. We've had discussions at times. Wally, I don't know if you and I disagree on a whole lot. But Anthony, Phil, we have. Jared, a number of others, I know that we have not completely agreed on everything. Alex, Amr, Alex, I disagree with the thing on Alex the other day when he was complaining about the end credit scenes and Superman, right? Like, I know that's, we don't always agree, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's all about amicable discourse. And that's what I want to return to. That's what I want to bring back. Because doesn't it feel like amicable discourse is just kind of like gone or like pushed off to the side? Because everybody on social media wants to pick a fight. Well, not everybody, but the majority of people on social media want to pick a fight. And as far as like actual humans, like there are humans out there, human accounts that are like, I don't feel like picking a fight. Why can't we just discuss this? Why can't we just talk about that? And it doesn't mean that you have to agree. It just means that why does everything got to be a combat? Why does everything got to be like some type of a boxing match, verbally speaking? And it doesn't have to be. And so those are the people that I'm looking for. That's the audience that I'm trying to build. I don't want people that love to hate. And I don't want people that love to love. Like, if you are positive about things, hey, great, awesome. It is definitely better to be positive than it is to be negative. But I'm looking for the gray area. I'm looking for everybody that understands that it's all about degrees in that regard. I'm looking for people that understand that you can absolutely enjoy both Man of Steel and James Gunn's Superman film at the same time, right? Somebody that understands that, people that understand that you can enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DCU at the same time, but also have your criticisms, right? Also not be completely 100% happy with everything, right? And the bottom line is the majority of my criticisms are not with the actual source material. They're not with the actual movies and whatnot. They're with the fans. Fan behavior. That's what I rant about the majority of the time. That's what my issues are with the majority of the time, because I feel like we can be better. I know we can be better. And maybe there are people out there that just don't want to be better. There are people that are so set in their ways that no matter what, it's always got to be they're right and everybody else is wrong, and they're just refusing to listen to reason. Well, I'm not one of those people. If I'm wrong about something, if I get something wrong, like say I had, what I said about Superman, say I had made some bold ass prediction about Superman making $1 billion, I would have absolutely called myself out that opening weekend. Like, yeah, no, I was wrong. It's not going to do that. I didn't feel that way though. I wasn't certain, and that was me being honest. It wasn't just me hedging my bet. It was like me being honest. Like, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. We got to see what the reception, the reaction to this is. But if I had made a bold prediction and I was wrong about it, I would have said, hey, I got that one wrong. Because I'm not afraid to be wrong. I'm not. It's not necessarily a pleasant thing to be wrong because one, I mean, depending on what it is that you're wrong about. Like if it's a positive thing that you wanted to have happen and it doesn't happen. Well, yeah, that sucks because you wanted the positive thing to occur, right? And what makes it worse is when people are basically going neener neener at you on social media and you try to tune all that shit out. But yeah, after that's why people are where they're at in life, right? Not just with respect to movies, TV, and other sorted media. We have people out there that just feel like they have to argue. They have to dig their heels in. They have to be right. And they can't deal with being wrong because for some reason, being wrong and having to admit that you were wrong is like this horrible thing to do in the world that we live in right now. And no, it isn't. It's called being human. I mean, it's literally what Superman just told us he does in the most recent movie, right? Like when he says he's as human as anyone, right? You know, about how he wakes up every morning and despite not knowing what to do, we try to put one foot in front of the other and try to make the best choices that we can. We screw up all the time, but that is being human. And that's our greatest strength, right? Like that's one of the probably like I've seen people react to Superman lately on TikTok and on social media, and that's like one of the scenes that really hits them. I mean, there's other scenes that hit them as well, but that's a big one, right? The way that towards the end of the movie, like that big part, that and the end of the movie itself, which is still just so amazing. But yeah, so it's all about like not being afraid to be wrong, not being afraid to say, hey, hey, it is what it is. We'll see how that goes, right? Without being a jerk about it, without letting other people treat you like a jerk about it. That's what the damn block and mute functions are for in that regard. So for me, I'm not going to say anymore that it's like, well, I'm never going to have those big followings. Here's what I'm going to hope. Here's my hope with respect to what I do going forward here at the Flightcast. My hope is that we bring more of people like us into this equation. I know that this is very much a niche group, like a niche podcast, right? It's been that way for the last couple of years. I have no idea how big it'll get. I know that there are some other things that I really want to do to try and like expand it, and I've done a few of those now. I mean, the Patreon is one thing, but also like being on TikTok, joining the guys on Vodka Stream again. That's been a lot of fun. Like that would be those are cool things to do to hopefully expand the reach, if you will. I have no idea how big the Flightcast is going to get, but if we can bring more people into the circle that we're in now, where we can agree to disagree, right? Where opinions aren't right or wrong, and we don't have to be jackasses in opposite corners of a boxing match anytime we are at an impasse about something. Anytime we disagree about something, we can agreeably disagree, right? Like it can be a case of, okay, this is how I feel, this is how you feel. We're not getting anywhere with this. It's an impasse. Let's just leave it as is, right? Agree to disagree without being snarky assholes about it, right? Like we all have our moments. We're all human. We all have our moments of weaknesses, right? We all screw up all the time, but still, we're human. And so that's the revelation that I came to with respect to what I do here. So the more people that we can bring in, like, that feel the way that we feel and like treat fandom the way that we treat fandom, that's what it's all about. It's not about the hate marketers, that have millions of followers. It's not even about the sunshine pumpers, if you will, right? I mean, look, I'll pump some sunshine. Like, I'll be happy. Yes, absolutely. I will definitely, sing the praises of, things that I thoroughly enjoy, and I will endeavor to not talk so much about things that I don't enjoy, right? But either way, that's the kind of community that I hope to build, right? And we'll see how far that goes with respect to that. And I think it's definitely cut from the same cloth of my podcast brothers over at Squadcast Media that got me started on this journey. And I always, defer to them. And with them, like all of them, like a lot of how I podcast really does come from them and my interactions with all five of them, because they're just like us. They're in the same position. And look, I vehemently disagreed with a number of them. I mean, maybe not so much Jordan and Chris, but Tim and I don't agree on things. Scott and I don't agree on things. Brett and I certainly haven't agreed on things in the past. There were definitely times during Fans Without Borders and DCTV Squadcast where that most certainly occurred. But at the end of the day, there was still the mutual respect. We could still push that aside and go, okay, you know what? This is how you feel. This is how I feel. We'll leave it at that. It didn't devolve into nonsense. It didn't devolve into petty bullshit like it does so often in fandoms, especially on social media these days. And so that's where I'm at with that. And that might be a little bit more existential than I normally get with respect to this show, but it was just something that I was thinking about. Because fandom is a lot of what we talk about, a lot of what I talk about on this show. And so, yeah, that was just a thought that I had. And I think it's a great segue into the thing that I do want to talk about with respect to two big fandoms right now: Marvel fandom and DC fandom, specifically with respect to movies at this point in time. There's a statement that I'm going to utter, and it will be the title of this episode. And you may not agree with what I'm about to say, but from my perspective, I will explain why I think this statement is incredibly valid for right now. And this statement is as follows. It's just three simple words. We're even now. We're even now with respect to Marvel and DC fandoms. Now, what do I mean by that? Do I mean the trolling? No. Do I mean the rage bait? No. Do I mean the tribalism? No, I don't mean that. However, the tribalism does have something to do with it, somewhat, in that regard. What I mean by we're even now is the playing field is more level now between the fandoms from Marvel Studios and DC Studios than it ever has been. First of all, the fact that DC Studios has a fandom, because DC Studios has existed for, going on 3 years now, right? So DC Studios, as its autonomous entity, run by James Gunn and Peter Safran, has existed and is fully operational, right? Up and running in that regard, and the DCU, its franchise has kicked off. The ball has gotten rolling with respect to that. And then you got Marvel Studios. Their ball's been rolling for the better part of, more than a decade. Or more than a decade and a half, right? We're approaching 2 decades in a couple of years here. When we get to 2028, the MCU will have been 20 years old, if you can believe that shit. Let's see how far they go with respect to their next projects. But for the vast majority of the MCU's existence, we have felt this dominance, if you will, with respect to the presence and the positioning of Marvel Studios in relation to DC. And it was largely Warner Brothers' fault, because DC Films was rudderless and knee-jerk and made 1,000 mistakes with respect to the establishment of the DCEU. Warner Brothers really had no idea how to handle anything after the Dark Knight trilogy ended. They let Nolan run that, and he did incredibly well, obviously, right? The last 2 movies, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, made over $1 billion. You can't deny the success. They were critically acclaimed. Whether you like The Dark Knight Rises or not, it is a critically acclaimed film, and the audience did largely enjoy it in that regard. But then when it came time to do the whole shared cinematic universe era, Marvel had that on lockdown. And even when the DCEU tried to get going, they, too many cooks in the kitchen, they listened to too many other fools, I don't need to rehash it, we already know, and they ran it into the ground before it could even really get started, right? So Marvel has been in this dominant place, if you will, and we talked for years. Stu remembers this, and a number of you, I'm sure, remember. I talked about Marvel fans needing a humbling, because man, their egos were huge. As far as the Marvel fans on social media, their egos were so incredibly huge. We're the gold standard. Marvel is leading the way, right? Remember the reviews for Captain America Civil War? It was like 5 weeks after BVS released, right? And we went through all that slog, despite the money that it made. And then as soon as Captain America Civil War came out, what do the reviews say? Marvel shows us how it's done. Marvel rights the ship. Marvel leads the way. This is what DC should have done. All of that noise, all of that nonsense just came flooding out from all the asshole critics and from all the snarky people, just fashioned into an aluminum bat that bashed us over the head with it. Bing, bing, bing. DC fans, shame on you. Bing, Marvel is how you should be doing. Bing, crossover already. Bing, get with a winning team. That's what they were telling us. That's what Marvel fans were telling us. Get with a winning team. And it got to a point where it was like, okay, look, you know what? I enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but these people are making it real difficult. Real difficult for me to enjoy these movies, because this type of arrogance, this type of pretension, if you will, is just unsightly. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. But the last 2 years have been different, haven't they? They've been very different. Like, when the Infinity Saga ended, I don't know that we could have predicted that the humbling would have gone the way that it did. I mean, first of all, COVID, right? COVID certainly changed things. It screwed with Marvel's schedule. No releases in 2020, so they got to push their schedule all the way back to 2021. They can't space out Black Widow and Eternals like they wanted to. They've got to compress it up against Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Spider-Man No Way Home in the back end of 2021, right? So that jams that. So you can't really say with fairness what Black Widow, Shang-Chi, or Eternals would have made because COVID and the movie theater stuff absolutely affected those films. And then Spider-Man No Way Home cannonballed their way through to $1.9 billion. So it's like, all right, well, Marvel's righted the ship as far as that goes. And they had a great 2022. They had a great 2022, financially speaking. They did. The popularity was absolutely there. 900 million plus for Multiverse of Madness. 760 million for Love and Thunder, which to this day still is like, really? Love and Thunder made that much? Yeah, it did. Over 800 million, over 850 million rather, for Wakanda Forever, right? So 2022 was still an awesome year. And then 2023 happened. And 2023 might have been the beginning of the level setting from between Marvel and DC as far as their statures were concerned, because it was the end of the DCEU and it was also the beginning of a phase of Marvel movies where the audience and the fans, were it really started to set in. The Infinity Saga's over. The buildup isn't there anymore, right? Because they'd spent a whole phase 4, right, from Black Widow to Wakanda Forever, just kind of going in different directions. And I enjoyed it. I did. And we had the shows coming out too. We had WandaVision, we had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We had other stuff going, right? But there wasn't a saga that was being built to. There wasn't necessarily a direction. But I liked that. I thought that was refreshing for Phase 4, right? To go in different directions. Because I largely like damn near all of the Phase 4 movies a ton, with the exception of Thor: Love and Thunder. I think all the rest of the Phase 4 movies are at least mid to high tier with respect to that. I like Black Widow. I love Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Love that movie like so much. I like Eternals a great deal. Obviously, I love Spider-Man No Way Home. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Over 2 hours of Sam Raimi MCU goodness. Oh yes, injected straight into my veins. It was so good. Thor: Love and Thunder, not my favorite. No, not my favorite, at the bottom of my list. But Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, rough movie. I was just talking with Anthony about this earlier today. It's good, but it is a rough movie. It's 2 hours and 41 minutes of mourning Chadwick Boseman, and that's not great for a repeat watch. It just isn't. As strong, as emotionally powerful as that movie is, it's just, and I even saw another TikTok video. There are people upset. I know that there's people that are upset that T'Challa didn't get recast. There's other people upset that Ramonda also got killed off. Right? They killed off Angela Bassett's character. It's like, how dare you? Like, I saw a TikTok earlier today that said that was foul. How dare you rip her away from us after we were already mourning Chadwick in real life? After T'Challa was already gone with respect to the film. So, great movie, but tough. Tough watch. And then, after that, when you got into Phase 5, it's something about how 2023 started. It was just like the audience went, okay, you know what? I don't know what we're doing anymore. I'm not sure what this is. And look, I've said before, 2023 that was the year that like the marketplace just got way oversaturated. 3 MCU films, 4 DCEU films, and then Across the Spider-Verse from Sony, right? And the only 2 that really succeeded were Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Across the Spider-Verse. I tried to lump in Aquaman, really, but Aquaman, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, that is. While it was financially the most successful DCEU movie of that year, Superman has already massively outgrossed it, right? Like, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom made $440.1 million worldwide in its entire run. Superman is already at 551, and I think it's north of 551 now, right? And it's been out a month in that regard. Almost a month. Almost a full month at this point, Superman has been out, right? So, in fact, they're talking about it possibly, like, this weekend, it may cross BVS's domestic run, which was $330 million. I say all of this to say that was kind of the beginning of the leveling out. The humbling started at that point. Because for Marvel's case, I mean, we know what happened with the DCEU movies. It was the farewell tour. We weren't as invested in it, and the movies weren't that great, right? Look, I do really like The Flash. I do. But there's always the promise of what could have been for us fans with respect to that film. Even though I really like it, even though I really like the story, I really like what they did as far as like the twist with respect to, what happened with his mother and all that. I thought it was inventive, right? Look, all the VFX complaints and concerns aside or whatnot, I'm forgiving with respect to that. I can find the silver lining. I have a lot of silver linings. I have a lot of positives to take from that particular film. It's the best out of the 4. Well, okay, maybe Blue Beetle's a little bit better. I don't know. One of these days I may have to re-adjudicate my DCEU list. But either way, we knew that was the end of it. We knew it was done. Gunn and Safran were in place, and we knew that it wasn't going to go any further, right? So it didn't really matter, financially speaking, in the grand scheme of things, what those four movies were going to do, because James Gunn had his plan, and he and Peter Safran were going to execute it as soon as they could. But the Marvel end of it, that's where we really, I guess, we're kind of seeing the first kind of cracks in this gold standard armor, right? Because Quantumania did not do well, right? And then the Jonathan Majors stuff came out, and it's like, okay, well, now what are they going to do? They're going to pivot from Kang, and we started hearing about that back then. Guardians Volume 3 did do well, right? Made over 800 million, but it also, I believe it still made about 18 to 20 million less than Guardians Volume 2 did in that regard, right? And then the Marvels, which was positively reviewed, did not do well, right? So you had 2 Marvel movies out of 3 in 2023 that did not do well. And when you had a situation where, all the DC movies didn't do well, even though some of them were reviewed critically better than others, and 2 of the 3 Marvel movies didn't do well, right? And that was the focus. Wait a minute, what's happened with Marvel? What happened with Quantumania? What happened with the Marvels, right? And so I think it was around that time. I want to say Tatiana Siegel's hit piece about Marvel being in trouble. Wasn't that before Deadpool and Wolverine? Maybe it was after. I don't remember. But either way, that was when we finally started to see, oh, wait, here we go. Here's that humbling that we were talking about, right? Marvel fans, what's going on with respect to that? And they had one movie last year, one movie in 2024, Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a massive hyped event. And what do you know? What I had been saying, okay, do less movies a year and, hype up epic events. Deadpool and Wolverine was absolutely hyped up as an epic event. Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, that's why it made 1.5 billion. It wasn't 1.5 billion that it made? 1.3 billion. Okay, as according to Box Office Mojo, 1.3 billion. Okay, but either way, big success, right? Massive success, right? And so, I'm sure people were like, hey, Marvel's right of the ship. But it's okay, well, that was a big, huge team up, right? It was kind of the same with No Way Home. At least that was how I looked at it. So then we get to this year, and it's okay, 3 Marvel movies. Who's going to do well? And this is where this is where we're even now in this regard. Because now, after seeing Captain America Brave New World do what it did, and then after seeing Thunderbolts do what it did, and Thunderbolts was reviewed far more positively on the Hell site and other places than Captain America Brave New World was. And then after it goes up on Disney Plus a month or so ago, then I see all these people on threads are talking about, what, I shouldn't have listened to any of you about Brave New World. That movie's actually really good, da-da-da-da-da. And then I think in my head, well, why didn't you go see it at the theater? Something kept you out of the theater and you waited for Disney Plus. And that's where some people are like, as long as Disney Plus is there, people don't have an impetus to go to the theater and they're just going to wait. Well, yeah, there's going to be 3 movies and they got to make a decision and they can't see all 3. Not everybody has the disposable income to go see 3 flippin' movies, in the year at the theater. Their families. That's an expense, right? People going to the movies for a family of 3 or 4 can total close to $100 when you factor in, or more, when you factor in tickets, when you factor in concessions, when you factor in gas, driving to and from the theater and whatnot. That's a big deal in that regard. And so another year where they had to pick between 3 Marvel movies, if you're a diehard MCU fan or if you're an MCU casual in that regard. And not only that, but these audiences are looking at this going, okay, well, this is movie 36, 37, and 30, or 35, 36, 37 of the MCU. It's okay, how much do we need to know beforehand going in, right? And that's also, that was tricky with both Brave New World and Thunderbolts, because Brave New World is well, have you been paying attention to Sam Wilson? Did you see how he became Captain America? Well, if they didn't, if they didn't see the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then that was kind of jarring to them. That might have added to what Feige said recently, and could he have worded it differently? I'm sure, perhaps. But when he said that part of the reason that, it was lackluster as far as the reception is because it was the first one without Steve Rogers. And I know there's a bunch of ways you can take it. I get it. I'm not saying he couldn't have worded it a different way, more diplomatically, if you will. But there's a point to that. If you were a casual Marvel fan and the last Captain America movie you saw was Civil War, the last Captain America that you saw was Steve Rogers, and now you see that it's not Steve Rogers, and it's, Falcon instead, right? It's Sam Wilson. Depending on how much of an Anthony Mackie fan or how much of a Sam Wilson fan you are, that might have dictated why you went and saw that movie or not, right? And they tried to get you with the marketing. They put Red Hulk in the marketing. All the fans that were like, I can't believe they put Red Hulk in the marketing. Well, that's why. Because they were concerned about whether or not Anthony Mackie was going to be enough of a sell, especially since there's no guarantee that the audience watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier to see the transition of him as Captain America. We all saw it. Us fans saw it, and we went and saw the film. We did. A lot of us did go see that film, but the general audience, not so much. And then Thunderbolts might have been even more behind the eight ball, because now that's a group of characters that the only one they would have seen, again, the general audience and the Marvel casuals, the only character in Thunderbolts, the only major character in Thunderbolts that they would have remembered consistently from the other movies is Bucky. Like, do they really remember Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp? Do they really remember Taskmaster from Black Widow? Do they really remember? First of all, they wouldn't have known about John Walker if they didn't see The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And they might not even know about Yelena. They would have to have at least seen Black Widow. In fact, one of my coworkers who was completely initiated into this stuff, he and his son, he asked me before we see Thunderbolts, are there any other Marvel movies that I should see before seeing Thunderbolts? And I told him Black Widow, because he hadn't seen Black Widow. I said, watch Black Widow. Definitely watch Black Widow. Now, what if I told him don't watch Black? It said nothing. And he wanted context, right? And not like you can't watch Thunderbolts without context. You can. But the thing is, when you're movie 36 in a franchise and everybody's paying attention to how many there are, the homework question is going to get asked. And so I was at least able to tell him, watch one movie, watch Black Widow, because that will introduce you to both Yelena and Alexei. And it's not like he hadn't seen Yelena, but he didn't know the full backstory. He wanted context, because he's into it, but there are still certain Marvel movies he hasn't seen. Not a ton. There's a few that he hasn't seen, like in Phase 4 and 5, and Black Widow was one of them. And so I told him that, and I think it helped him with respect to he and his son going to see Thunderbolts in that regard, right? But these are things that kind of were working against Marvel, right? Beyond all this brand damage nonsense and all these other fan narratives that they want to come up with in terms of why the MCU has struggled this year with respect to box office and popularity, right? And then you get to Fantastic Four. And I already mentioned before how I had a coworker with Fantastic Four who was asking, because she and her friends didn't know how much homework they needed to do for that movie, and I was able to tell them, none. You don't have to. Now, they went and saw it, and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the hell out of it. She told me again today how much she loved Fantastic Four, which is great. It's fantastic. Pun intended. It's an outstanding film. But now everybody's freaking out. The Marvel fans are freaking out about this 66% drop, which, yes, 1% difference off of the 67% drop for BVS that we got beaten into our heads 9 years ago. Remember, 67% drop. Second week drop. One of the highest second week drops. They're still saying that shit to us today. And now they're saying it about a Marvel movie. Now you got people out there, and I've seen it. I've seen people, and this is where I get to the crux of what I'm talking about here. I'm taking the long way, but you know how long-winded I am. This is where I get to the crux of what I'm talking about here. When I say we're even now, I mean in terms of the discussion and in terms of the playing field. Because just as much as I got people telling me that Superman is a flop because it's not even going to make what Man of Steel made, overall globally, even though they're taking so much, they're ignoring so much context, and there is still a chance that it can get to Man of Steel's gross, and then they'll just move the goalposts and go back to their whole adjusted for inflation nonsense, right? Not only have I got people telling me that Superman is a flop, even though it's not, and David Zaslav has made it abundantly clear that Peter Safran and James Gunn have been given the go-ahead to proceed with the DCU, so we don't even have to worry or discuss about whether or not it makes enough money for the DCU to proceed unabated. No, he already gave them their blessing, his blessing rather. He already said opening weekend, we've got a 10-year plan going and we're looking forward to Supergirl and Clayface. He said that 3 days in to the official release. The box office question was answered at that point. And Gunn even answered it by saying that wasn't the end-all be-all. No, it doesn't need to make this. Because they were looking at the other aspects. They were looking at the dog adoptions. They were looking at the outreach and the fan reaction, right? That's the bigger thing that they were looking for because they're making an investment on their franchise, right? But I got people telling me on the DC side that Superman is a flop because it won't make as much money as Man of Steel. And then on the other side of it, I've got Marvel people saying that Fantastic Four is a flop because of the 66% drop-off, and man, the MCU is in trouble because when is the last time they had a bona fide hit that wasn't a massive team-up? That's what I mean when I say we're even now. Because the same toxic bullshit is happening in both fan bases. Now Marvel fans finally get to feel what we have been feeling as DC fans for a good portion of the last 9 years. Now the nonsense is on their side, and I have seen them react to it. I wrote a piece about it earlier today because now I'm seeing Marvel fans en masse on Threads saying, why are we so worried about box office? I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired of talking about box office. Does anybody remember when we only talked about whether or not we enjoyed the movies and what we liked about the movies or not? Why can't we get back to that discussion? Oh, really? The same shit that we DC fans were telling you about the DCEU for years. For years we told you, stop focusing so much on box office. We just want to talk about the movies and have fun fan discussion about that, whether we agree or disagree. And we got hammered with box office, box office, box office. And they still hammer us with box office, box office, box office, right? We've been dealing with that for way longer than MCU fans, but now MCU fans have got a taste of it. They've got a taste of it now. Because now it's building up, right? Now this is a couple. It's more than just 2 out of 3 in 2023, right? It's more than just Quantumania and the Marvels. Now it's also a Captain America movie. Now it's also Thunderbolts. Now it's also Fantastic Four. And mind you, they're jumping to conclusions, in my opinion, right? We don't know exactly where Fantastic Four or Superman are going to land. Now the projections say that Superman is going to land somewhere around 625. That's what Gitesh Pandya was saying the other day. He's predicting that this upcoming Sunday is when Superman is going to pass BVS domestically. It's going to break 330 million. Very possible. It's at like 316 or like between 316 and 320 now, if I'm not mistaken. I forget what Monday's numbers are at. But either way, very possible that it gets to 330 domestically, right? And he's thinking 625, around 625 overall when it's all said and done. Fantastic Four, he's predicting will get past $500 million, but not too much past that in that regard. And the thing about this is we still don't know, like, there's a 2-week gap in between when Superman released and when Fantastic Four released. So Fantastic Four theoretically will be in theaters for longer than Superman, but it also depends on when either DC Studios or Marvel Studios decides to pull their films out of the theater. Right now, there's no reason. I mean, there's going to be less screens, obviously, because of other bookings, but there's no reason for DC Studios to yank Superman out of theaters at all whatsoever. And certainly Marvel Studios is going to do it. It's only been 11 days. Right? It's 11 days into their tenure as far as like Fantastic Four's theatrical run. So we've still got like a ways to go still before either of these movies are all said and done. I mean, look how long Sinners was in theaters. Look how long Lilo and Stitch was in theaters before it crossed $1 billion. Look how long Universal is probably going to keep Jurassic World in theaters. And that apparently, according to Gitesh Pandya, that like VOD release for Jurassic World Rebirth is out today, 34 days after release, and you can watch Jurassic World Rebirth digitally right now if you pay for it, right? Okay, everybody that was freaking out, and I'm not saying anybody listening here, but all the people that were freaking out, when that rumor came out that like allegedly Superman was going to release digitally on the 15th of August, right? And like, they're cutting off. This is a grave disappointment. They're cutting off the box office potential. Now it's really not going to make that much money. And then it turned out to be bullshit because it's actually still going to come out on the 26th. But where is your outrage or where is your concern for Jurassic World? No, you don't care because it's Jurassic World. Right? It's not your comic book movie. There's no narrative that you can build on that with respect to the toxicity in that regard that will get all of the attention, right? You know the attention's going to be focused squarely on Superman or on Fantastic Four, right? So at some point, right, it's going to be like, well, when's that going to release on Disney Plus? And they'll talk about that. Like, well, that cut it off. And then, well, what another dark year for the MCU. And they better hope and pray that Spider-Man Brand New Day gets the job done, which it probably will. And they better hope and pray that they know what they're doing for Doomsday, right? Those are narratives. Marvel fans are exhausting other Marvel fans. Just like DC fans have exhausted us for the last number of years with respect to their rhetoric. It's happening on both sides. And that is what I mean when I say we're even now. I'm not talking about tribalism. I'm not talking about like any other rivalry stuff. I'm saying that the landscape in terms of where we're at financially, where our films are performing in the Hollywood like specter right now, the new post-2020 Hollywood setup, right? Where, again, for the umpteenth time, I've said this a lot in the last week, but the experts are telling us that we will not reach pre-pandemic box office levels until after 2029. We have 3.5 more years before we get to where we were when Endgame was making nearly $3 billion, right? Or when, the Joker was making $1 billion, right? We're not there yet. So all those expectations need to be reset. I've said that a bunch of times as well. I'll continue to say that because, for us, hopefully in the gray area of fandoms, hopefully in the middle, hopefully with perspective on either side, right? We can understand this. But that's where we're at, right? Like, so this air of superiority that Marvel had, gone. All that arrogance from before, gone. Like, where is it? What do they have to stand on, to be honest with you? Not at this point in time. They're too busy arguing with their own fans now. Just like we have argued with our own fans, right? They got to worry about rage bait and trolls the same way that we do. They didn't have to for a while. Let's be honest, guys. Marvel fans did not have to worry about that for the majority of the MCU's existence. Now they do. Now it's just as much their problem as it has been ours. But the thing is, it's almost like the other part of this, though, and not that we are in a superiority, because I'm not trying to look for, I'm not saying, okay, well, now DC is going to take over and DC is going to become the gold standard. Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all, because I'm tired of the gold standard bullshit. I didn't like it when when Marvel fans called the MCU the gold standard. I certainly don't want people calling the DCU the gold standard. I don't. I really don't. Like, do I want DC Studios to succeed? Do I want the DCU to succeed? Absolutely, I do. And will there be a slight chuckle if it does start to do significantly better than the MCU? Yeah, a slight chuckle. But I am certainly not going to be the asshole that throws it in the face of Marvel fans like, neener, neener, now we're better. No. Because why? What is that about? That's being an asshole. That's being a jerk. That goes against what I do. That goes against my principles, and I'm not going to do that. I am only a jerk and a jackass to people who are that back to me. I really have no intentions of just being a bully and being a jerk to anybody for the sake of it. And certainly not with an air of superiority. No, that is not what I do. That's not how I am. And I'm sure there are people out there that think I'm just completely full of it and I'm blowing smoke up their ass with what I say. But no, that's legitimately how I feel. So I'm not looking for DC Studios to take the reins. They might. I'm not saying they won't. There are people out there already saying that DC has taken the reins. And what was the headline that we saw the other day? When it became clear, when after the second weekend, after that 66% drop was reported, right after Variety scared everybody with the Friday to Friday drop, which was 80%, and had everybody thinking it was even worse. No, the weekend drop off for Fantastic Four was 66%. But what did they say? The projections were that likely Superman is going to be the highest grossing comic book film of 2025, which means for the first time since 2008, a DC film will lead the box office for comic book films in a year. And not only that, but in a year where there were not one, not two, but three other Marvel films, one of which released in the same month as it, right? I saw that headline a ton the other day. First time that DC will win the box office since 2008, because winning and all that nonsense or whatever, right? Yeah, the billionaires get rich again, that type of deal. No, whatever. But that's the thing, is like, we're already seeing the narratives being pushed. We're already seeing the sides trying to shift in that regard, right? And somebody brought this up on Threads. Instead of talking about the Naked Gun, instead of talking about like hyping up, Julia Garner's press tour for Weapons, what are they talking about? What is the press talking about? They're talking about Fantastic Four's drop and about how Superman continues to chug along, right? Like that's where they know the attention and the bread is buttered with respect to their headlines and with respect to their clickbait, and that's where they're focusing their attention, because they know that we pay attention to the Marvel headlines, we pay attention to the DC headlines, and they smell blood in the water. Just like they've done for years when they smelled blood in the water with Scooper Madness and, stoking the fire with all the nonsense that they would throw at us for DC. Now they smell it with Marvel and DC. And they're like, hey, all right, now we've got both of them. Let's get them both churning in this regard, right? And Marvel fans are in a position that they really have not been in for the majority of the MCU's existence. The last 2 years for Marvel fans have been very different. Very, very different than the previous 15 years of the MCU's existence. Very much so, right? That era of superiority is over. That time of arrogance is done. What does a Marvel fan have to be arrogant about now? Not at this point. Not with all the chatter going on about Superman, and not with the numbers coming in, and not with them having to do with their own fans talking shit about their own movies, just like our own fans talked shit about our movies, right? As far as DC fandom. So, you know what? I look at this as an opportunity to say, hey, Marvel fans, welcome aboard. Yeah, it's like that the James Franco gif where he's like, like got the noose around his neck. He's like, first time, right? Hey, hey, welcome, come aboard, right? Hey, now all the ridiculousness. Hey, and I've said this before, like I said this with respect to I forget if it was Eternals or maybe Quantumania or whatever when they had to deal with rotten scores because remember that was the thing, right? They hadn't had a rotten score in like over in 30 movies and then they finally get a right. Like Eternals for whatever reason didn't count because pandemic or whatever, right? And then Quantumania got one. It's like, ooh, oh, okay, what's going on here, right? And so they had to navigate getting rotten scores, and then they had to navigate getting hit pieces like the one from Tatiana Siegel. And now they've got to navigate people pouring dirt on the franchise because of box office, and they're imploring us to dismiss box office and talk about the movies themselves. It's like, wow, the chickens have kind of come home to roost. But again, not being arrogant, not gloating about it. Absolutely not. I'm not looking at them going, oh, well, my, how the tables have turned. No, nothing like that. I'm just saying we're even now. We're on an even keel. There's no superiority anymore. Not from this point forward. And, I'm sure that a number of you are probably thinking, well, Ray, that's going to last until Spider Man Brand New Day makes $2 billion next year. And then Avengers Doomsday does the same. Yeah, I hear you. But you know what? The narrative with that is still going to be, and someone will bring this up, and I'll also point it out, it's still going to be, well, unless it's Spider Man or a big ass team up, what can Marvel do? Because what's going to happen the next time they decide to do solo movies? We've already seen what the track record is with solo movies. And this has nothing to do with subjective opinion of the films. As I have said, I have enjoyed all 4 comic book films that I saw this year. I've had a really good year with respect to comic book movies. Captain America Brave New World was mid for me, but mid is still enjoyable, right? Thunderbolts is high tier, top tier MCU, as is Fantastic Four. And Superman, oh my God, I've seen Superman 4 times. I've seen Superman 4 times in theaters, and it's gotten better with each watch, right? I may end up seeing Fantastic Four a 3rd time because Shonda hasn't seen it. She wants to see it. So, yes, I've seen it twice without her because she wasn't necessarily. I didn't know that she was that interested in it, but she said, as she mentioned earlier today, she's like, yeah, maybe we can go see it this weekend. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll go see it. Absolutely, I'll go see it because I really like it. It's a really good movie. So no, my enjoyment is there, right? But all these narratives and all of this posturing and all of this noise that DC fans have primarily dealt with for the last 9 years, now Marvel fans are having to deal with it as well. So, fandoms, Marvel fandom, DC fandom, join hands, right? Lock elbows, walk hand in hand. We are the world. We are the children, right? Let's go ahead. Let's just walk hand in shared unison that we're even with respect to nonsense and noise in our fandoms, right? I'm being serious. Like I'm not being flippant or funny about it. Like this is I prefer this. I prefer one not being having a superiority complex over the other. I prefer even keel. I do. I like this. I don't like the noise. I don't like the bullshit. I don't like people pouring dirt on the grave of Fantastic Four. And I certainly don't like anybody trying to tell me that Superman is a flop. I think both of those groups of people are idiots that need to be muted and blocked into oblivion. And I know that a lot of them are rage bots trying to start the fire. I posted earlier today, just once again, to give you an example of just exactly how like a good portion of social media is just rage bots looking for reasons to piss us off, right? Not actually humans looking for actual discussion. I posted a few things yesterday. I posted, when the box office stuff coming up, like the Man of Steel comparisons, right? Comparing Superman to Man of Steel and this whole adjusted for inflation nonsense. And people legitimately trying to tell us that if Man of Steel were released today, it would make nearly $1 billion. Insane to think that in this economy, in this state that we're at post 2020, that Man of Steel would even come close to $1 billion. Absolutely certifiable in that regard, right? But I posted yesterday, I said, no amount of cherry-pick math or inflation calculators will make your argument about Man of Steel being more popular than Superman any less pathetic. If anything, making more than $500 million in 3 weeks in this trash economy is much more impressive than making $670.1 million in 2013. I was stoking the fire a little bit with that last comment, but I do believe that. I do agree with that, right? And people are trying to say, well, there was a recession in 2013. Oh, really? Like now? Really? Did we have to worry about ICE in 2013 like we do now? No, we don't. Did we have to worry about Medicare and like all other socio-political things we have to worry about now? No, we didn't. So stop trying to approximate that. And the box office was different. Iron Man 3 made over $1 billion in 2013. There are no $1 billion earners in 2025. Shut up. And I said, stop making Snyder fans look crazy. Log off the internet, go sit in a corner, and ask your mom to forgive you for being a whiny baby over a damn movie. The DCU has arrived, whether you like it or not. And I included a GIF of Superman, right? So, from the new movie, David Cornsweet's Superman. So I got a good amount of attention with that, right? And all day today, like there have been plenty of people yesterday that posted that agreed and was like, yes. You know, and people, one guy, I don't understand why you can't like both because I love both. Yes, absolutely. I love both, right? And people sick of the arguing over which one is better and all that. But I will tell you, when you go and look at the fact that there are 74 replies as of right now, me recording this right now, there's 74 replies to this particular post that I posted on Threads yesterday. And then you go down and you see some replies have been hidden. I will tell you that at least a quarter of those 74 replies have been hidden because it was literally 0 and 11 followers and 20 followers and no avatar just coming with nonsense. One told me that I was high. Another one said that I should stop ball gargling Superman and trying to convince everybody that it was a good movie, right? Like all manner of negativity and toxicity, and hide for everyone is the greatest feature right now for me with social media, because hide for everyone and then block their stupid body asses, right? Because I know they're not real people. I know that it's not actual engagement. I know that it's just trash trying to get me riled up. And that's what so much of this is, guys. That's why we shouldn't respond to these morons. And I still struggle with that. All of us will still struggle with it on occasions here and there, right? But largely, we need to stop responding to these fools because they're not looking for a discussion. They're not listening to anything that we're saying. They're just there to try and piss us off. I posted something that got attention. It did. I mean, it didn't go viral or anything, but it has like over 340 likes, right? It got attention. People were still liking it to this day, and I put Superman in the topic, right? So the bots saw that. The rage bots and the trolls saw that, and they tried to stoke the fire. They tried to get it going, and I just said, screw you, hide, block. Hide, block. Hide for everyone, block. And that's mostly what the responses have been for that posting today. This is what they do. And if I had done something similar for Fantastic Four, they would do the same thing. The exact same thing. Oh, and that also happened with the video that I posted, the video I posted about comparing the box office on TikTok. I also posted it on Instagram, which also shares on Threads. I got the same type of attention there as well. So it's all just them trying to wind us up. Them trying to get engagement in the cheapest way possible with the hate marketing. And we're better than that. We are. Without being pretentious, without being assholes, we're better than that. We don't need to pay attention to that nonsense because the DCU is moving forward. Superman is objectively not a flop. And with respect to Fantastic Four, did we all enjoy that movie? Yeah, I think we all largely enjoyed that film. We did. Most certainly did. You know, I haven't found anyone yet through all of that feedback that we went through in 5 hours on Sunday. Nobody said I just did not care for Fantastic Four. No, we all liked Fantastic Four. And we know that it's not going to affect Brand New Day or Doomsday. At least we don't think it will, right? Like, there's nothing in there. Like, we're not all of a sudden going to hear tomorrow that the cast of Fantastic Four has been removed from Avengers Doomsday. You can't necessarily do that because Doctor Doom is still involved in that regard, right? Like, why would you do that at this late stage, knee-jerk, because of what happened with Fantastic Four? And you still don't know what's going to happen because it's only been out for 11 days, right? So, either way, like, this is what they're doing to both of us. This is what they're doing to DC fans. They've been doing it to DC fans for years, and this is what they're now doing to Marvel fans. So let us lock hands. Let us shake hands. Let us stand tall together as two fandoms and flip all these bots off, right? Mute and block all these stupid attention whoring asses, right? And let's just proceed forward the way that we would like to proceed, which is to talk about the movies and not focus so much on the damn box office. Because we're not shareholders. We're not Bob Iger. We're not David Zaslav. We're not even Kevin Feige or James Gunn or Peter Safran. We're not shareholders. Okay? Maybe some of us are. I think Chris Belga, I think, is a Marvel shareholder. I think he is. But my point being is that unless you're a Marvel shareholder, there's no reason for you to be that invested in the box office. There's no reason for it to dominate your conversation with respect to either of these movies in that regard, right? So if we really want to talk about the art, if you really want to talk about the movies themselves, if you really want to level the playing field and get back to what we actually enjoy with respect to these fandoms, then let's do that. Let's both do that. Let's both block out the noise that both of our fandoms are completely dealing with at this point in time. Because, for once, after all this time of being lopsided in one direction, we're even now. We most certainly are. And I like it. And that's how I want to proceed going forward. And so that's what I really wanted to talk about with respect to the fandoms and the position that both Marvel and DC fans are in right now. And hopefully, I mean, I know we're going to still talk about box office. I know that's still going to be a thing. But I hope that the bulk of our box office discussion with respect to these two movies has kind of like gotten out now, like as we've identified the nonsense that we're both dealing with for Superman box office and for Fantastic Four box office, and that going forward, it will inform our discussion, hence, when this comes up again, because it will. We're going to be talking about it for a while until the theatrical runs of both these films are done, and we see, how it's assessed going forward. But again, reframe that conversation. Time to have different conversations about box office, whether people accept that or not. And that'll do it for this particular episode of the Flightcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting and paying attention to the Flightcast, listening to my musings and all of my thoughts and all of my hopes and dreams, if you will, with respect to the nerd and geek community that we are a part of with respect to movies, TV, and other sort of media. If you have any thoughts on anything that I said with respect to my reflections earlier about the Flightcast and what I want to do with the audience going forward and what I hope to build out of that, if you have any thoughts on that, and if you certainly have any thoughts with what I think with respect to the Marvel and DC fandoms being even now with respect to the movies in that regard, you know where to find me on Threads and Instagram at the Flightcast, on Blue Sky at Flightcast. You can comment on the posting for this episode on the Flightcast YouTube page. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care, stay safe out there, have a great rest of the week, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.